Hey guys, we're going to talk today about inherency. That's one of the debate kind of core things we talked about. Remember, we talked about inherency, solvency, advantages, and disadvantages, which are the four parts of the debate. And you can see in the affirmative, there's a passage here. This is in the packet. Inherency is a description of the status quo. So the status quo is just a fancy term for right now. So what's happening right now? As a barrier to changing the plan. So something that might prevent it from happening. So in the affirmative plan, it talks about we use the Whitney evidence to provide statistics to talk about why the United States sells weapons, or that the United States does sell weapons to the majority of the authoritarian regimes around the globe. So that's the inherency kind of stance in that. So if you look at our team case, and I'm switching to the team case right now, we're going to make this argument right here for the inherency. Now, usually inherency doesn't get argued in debates, but sometimes it does. So we have to be ready for this. We have to lay enough groundwork to say that there's a problem today. So our contention one is inherency. The U.S. supplies arms to 73% of the dictatorships. Arms sales sustain American imperialism and human rights abuses globally. The quote we're going to use is Whitney 2017. And we're going to make sure the judge knows that 49 nations in the world can be categorized as dictatorships based on the categorization and some of the definitions in this article. We have provided, and we as the United States, has provided military assistance to 36 of these 49 dictatorships, courtesy of your tax dollars. So we're going to start simply inherency in the affirmative plan. If you look back in the plan, you'll see that there's lots more evidence, and when the other team runs this, they could run any of these. They're likely to use some of the bold or highlighted or underlined words in this section, but we want to be prepared for that. One thing I want to show you about the packet is, if you'll notice right under in the packet, there's a link to the original article. So one of the things we're going to do this year is not just worry about the packet, but maybe click into the original article, get a sense for what periodical this is from. So we're at truthout.org. So I don't know anything about truthout.org, so that might come up later in the year as people get more sophisticated. But you can go and scroll through and read this and see if any of this stuff makes sense to you, about just to get some background on, here's where they got the 49 nations in the world quote, and that we've done 36 of them. We've provided assistance to them. So you're already seeing things that we're pulling out of it. It talks about some of them, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. They might get asked questions and cross-examination about which of the 36, or give us an example, and you want to be able to talk about Saudi Arabia and Egypt maybe. But you want to read through this article right here to get a sense for what our inherency argument is. And since we're using the packet, we know that the negative has a inherency argument this year. So this was not true last year, so they didn't provide an inherency argument, so we're going to have to be prepared for that. We're probably not going to run an inherency argument in our negative case because it gets tricky. One of the things is, if you tell people that there's already a law that prevents this, which is what this argument says. So the negative could run this argument against your inherency and say, we already have, and they're going to talk about the CAT policy. So that we already have a law, or really a presidential, I think it was a presidential announcement or security policy. So we already have a policy in place that the negative may say that does this. So if they do that, they might use some of these arguments down here in the packet, so you'll want to be familiar with them. But they're going to say, or this article says, this will reduce the misuse of arms, and it talks about, like, other people in other countries that not being the case for if we do that. Why we're not running an inherency argument, it really gets complicated really fast. If you think about the disadvantages we plan on running, if we say that there's already a law in place that does these things, then the disadvantages would be probably considered non-unique, or you could probably prove that out. So we can talk about some arguments later about that. If you want to know more about this KNOW article, again, there's a link in here. And this one comes from csis.org. So again, Center for Strategic and International Studies. I don't know anything about this this website, so I don't know if it is biased in any way. But you can look at some of the article, and you can start reading it to be prepared for what they might say. The interesting thing about when you do this, when you're thinking about us not running the article, you can think about it for if they do run it, is there something in here that causes a weakness for the negative team that they might not have done their research on, because they're probably only reading, something like this one sentence in their argument. There might be something down here that you think that can help you. So this is the inherency, or your introduction to inherency. So that's a little bit of the two arguments that we're going to face this year.